Facts Church. When you look above, get the inspiration for that brotherly love. Facts Church. When you
On the White House website, if you go there now, it has this section called the Agenda. And the first additional issue under the agenda is faith. They speak about how Barack Obama in June of 2006, then Senator Obama, delivered what was called the most important speech on religion and politics in 40 years. And among the principles that they spoke of, they enunciated that Barack Obama enunciated a need for religious people to translate their concerns into universal rather than religion-specific values during public debate. And here he is at the transcendent ritual of American democracy and representational government, saying how we are a nation that believes in God, when in fact we are a nation of all sorts of beliefs, including our beliefs, the godless beliefs, that using God is not a valuable thing, that God is actually something that could be somewhat harmful, and showing no respect for our views. You know, there was a case, a Supreme Court case called Plessy v. Ferguson. Many of you probably heard of it. A man by the name of Homer Plessy, who was 7/8 white, tried to sit on a whites-only railroad car in Louisiana. Louisiana had a law that prevented people. Blacks couldn't sit in white railroad cars and whites couldn't sit in black railroad cars. And the case went to the Supreme Court, and 7-1, the Supreme Court decided that that was an okay law. They said, well, wait a second. Blacks can't sit in white railroad cars, but that's no different from what whites can't sit in black railroad cars. That's equality. All the races are being treated in the same way. And the one dissenter was Justice Harlan. He said, you know, we know what's really going on here. The real meaning of this law, the real meaning of what happened to Mr. Plessy, is not that we're treating people equally. The real meaning is that Negro citizens are so inferior and degraded that they cannot be allowed to sit in public coaches occupied by white citizens. Well, the real meaning when we have these blessings under God and when we take chaplains to come and pray and lead us in prayer to God, is not just that these people think it's a wonderful thing. There's more to that meaning. It's that you godless among you, you're not as good as we are. Just like you blacks among us weren't as good as the whites. It's identical. Now, some people have problems with the analogy, and I can understand why. Because when you have this stigmatic injury, you need two things. One, you need the government to inflict the stigma, and the other thing you need is an identifying manner, an identifying methodology, so that you can see who are these people that you've stigmatized. Now, blacks have the identifying characteristic on their skin. They walk into a room, you know that a black person is black, and so therefore you can apply the stigma that the government has put forth. You can't do that with atheists because atheists don't show themselves as atheists when they walk into a room. Well, that's true. And so therefore the problems that blacks have sustained over the years have been much greater than that towards atheists. But the stigma, the message that the government has given, is far worse towards atheists than it is towards blacks. After all, we have a Pledge of Allegiance that we are a nation under God. We have a motto, in God we trust. We start off our sessions with Congress, with prayers to God. The Supreme Court starts off, God save the United States and its honorable court. We continually send a message that we in America are God believers, and people who don't believe in God, just like we used to send the message that people who aren't white aren't as good as we are. That's a horrible message to send. And I wish that Barack Obama, of all people, would recognize that. No, it isn't just blacks. It's other minorities as well. There was a case called Korematsu from 1944. Korematsu was a man who was of Japanese-American descent. And we were in a world war against the Japanese. And so the government of the United States passed a law, an incredible law, that said if you were Japanese-American, we could keep you out of certain areas in California where we were afraid that there'd be espionage and we would be unsafe if Japanese were coming over here. So all Japanese Americans, because we couldn't tell you apart, you weren't allowed in there. What a horrible idea. And this goes back to that identifying feature phenomenon, because if you recall, we also had a general leading our forces in Europe against the Germans, a man by the name of Eisenhower, a German name. How come we didn't have things against Germans? Well, we didn't because we couldn't identify Germans as easily as we could identify Japanese Americans. but the principle was the same. We don't want to stigmatize people. And if we would stigmatize Germans, as many people did, we said, okay, we can stigmatize those people, but we're different. And because we couldn't tell them apart, we said, all right, we'll let those people go, but we really know what's going on. Now imagine if you could identify Germans as we could identify Japanese Americans. We would have done the same thing. And it would have been questionable had Dwight D. Eisenhower been in charge of our forces. So I hope that Barack Obama wakes up, and maybe if he's reelected, next time stops and says, wait a second, what am I really doing here? I'm treating people, American citizens, people who are supposed to be equals in this country, as unequal. I'm singling out my religious belief to be something better than theirs. And so when he says how he's seeking unity, and he's trying to do away with the idea of religion-specific values, he should make sure he's not doing it himself. He should stand for the principle of equality that we find in the Constitution of the United States, and I would argue that we find in godless goodness. I want to thank you for coming. We're going to have a good time tonight. We're going to have a moment of science, which I have to give credit to the Church of Free Thought from Texas. We're going to have Free Think Drink, and we'll ask you to join us. And we're going to have some discussions that I think you'll find very pleasurable. But I also want you to understand that we are godless, and we say that with pride. We hope that you will join in the godless community, or at least understand what we're about. And before we begin, I'd like to have us all join in some song. We're going to sing The Sign of the Brain.
It is wonderful that as we hurl through space, we're of this super race, the one that can with thought be seeing. It is wonderful, a reason to be glad, that to the end does add the talents of each human being. It is wonderful that with each chosen mind we can choose to be kind and from evil can refrain. It is wonderful to care, to love, to help, to share. So now Mook, the sign of the brain.